Right now, at this exact moment, 4,500 ships are stranded near the Strait of Hormuz, unable to pass through, carrying fuel and cargo and raw materials that the American economy needs to function. FedEx just raised its fuel surcharge to 26.5%. Bank of America reported that credit card spending at gas stations spiked 16.5% in March. Costco and Sam's Club are reporting bulk pack sellouts with restocking timelines measured in weeks, not days. Freeze-dried emergency food kits that sat untouched on shelves for 3 years are selling out in 48 hours. Prescription refills are being requested ahead of schedule in pharmacies across the country. People are filling gas cans, buying generators, stockpiling water by the pallet. And if you are sitting in your living room right now watching this video, I want you to look around your house and ask yourself a question that 72 million American households have already asked themselves in the past 6 weeks. If the stores went empty tomorrow, how many days could you feed your family with what you have in your kitchen right now? If the answer is less than 2 weeks, you are not prepared for what is coming. And the feeling you just felt in your stomach when I asked that question, that tightness, like that anxiety, that instinct to immediately start making a mental grocery list, that is the same feeling that is driving millions of Americans to Costco, to Walmart, to Amazon, to their local grocery store right now, filling their carts with canned goods, rice, beans, water, batteries, flashlights, and first aid supplies. They are scared, and the data says they are right to be. And I know you are watching this right now, and part of you is thinking this is just another fear video, another channel trying to get your attention with doom and anxiety. I understand that instinct. You have been lied to by people who use fear to get clicks. But I want you to hear me out for the next 20 minutes, because every single number I am about to give you is sourced to a federal agency, a Wall Street bank, a university research center, or a publicly filed corporate disclosure. I am not speculating, I am reading the receipts, and the receipts say that the American consumer is more afraid, more financially exposed, more behaviorally panicked, and more institutionally abandoned than at any previous point in the modern era. This is not 2008. This is not 2020. This is something that has never happened before, because the number of simultaneous threats converging on the American household in the spring of 2026 exceeds anything the country has faced outside of a world war. And the people who are supposed to be managing it are either lying about the severity, distracted by politics, or simply do not have the tools to respond. And ordinary Americans know it. They feel it in their bones. And they are acting on that feeling in the only way they can. They are preparing. Consumer sentiment just hit a number that has never been recorded in 75 years of American history. You can measure fear. It has a number. The University of Michigan has been measuring how Americans feel about the economy every month since 1952. Through recessions, through wars, through assassinations, through the stagflation of the 1970s, through the dot-com crash, through 9/11s, through the 2008 financial collapse, through a global pandemic that killed over 1 million Americans. For 75 years, through every crisis this country has ever faced, the Consumer Sentiment Index never dropped below 50. In April of 2026, it hit 47.6, the lowest reading in the history of the survey, lower than the month after Lehman Brothers collapsed and 8.7 million Americans lost their jobs, lower than the month after COVID-19 shut down the American economy and GDP contracted at an annualized rate of 31% in a single quarter, lower than the month after gas lines stretched for miles during the 1979 oil embargo, lower than any month in any crisis in any administration in the past 3/4 of a century. And the survey director, Joanne Husu, specifically noted that the deterioration in sentiment was across age, income, and political party affiliation. This is not a partisan feeling. This is not a class feeling. This is a national feeling. Rich, poor, young, old, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Americans are scared at a level that has never been measured before. And when you talk to actual human beings, when you listen to the videos people are posting online, when you read the comments on every financial channel on YouTube, the fear is not abstract. It is specific. People are afraid they will not be able to afford gas to get to work by summer. People are afraid that the food prices that have already risen 36% in a decade are about to spike another 12 to 18% in 6 months. People are afraid their health insurance subsidies have been taken away and they cannot afford to get sick. People are afraid their Medicaid is going to be cut and their SNAP benefits are going to be reduced and their Social Security is running out and their savings are earning 0.01% while inflation eats 3.3% of their purchasing power every year. The fear is not irrational. The fear is mathematical, and the math does not lie. And I want to talk about something that the Consumer Sentiment Survey reveals that the headline number does not capture. The survey also measures inflation expectations. When consumers are asked what they expect prices to do over the next 12 months, the April 2026 response was the highest inflation expectation in the survey's modern history. Americans are not just afraid of the present, they are terrified of the future. They expect prices to keep climbing. They expect their income to fall further behind. They expect the war to continue. They expect the disruptions to worsen. And that expectation itself becomes a driver of the very inflation they fear, because when consumers expect prices to rise, they buy sooner to avoid paying more later, which increases demand in the present, which pushes prices up in the present, which confirms the expectation. Economists call this an inflationary expectation spiral, and it is the exact mechanism that made 1970s inflation so difficult to break. Paul Volcker had to raise interest rates to 20% and deliberately induce a deep recession to shatter the spiral. And the 2026 version of the spiral is forming in real time, documented by the University of Michigan survey data, and nobody at the Federal Reserve is talking about it publicly, because talking about it would require admitting that the inflation that Americans are experiencing is not transitory, not contained, and not under control. It would require admitting that the American consumer is right to be afraid. And admitting that, out loud, from an official podium, would accelerate the very behavior they are trying to manage. So they stay silent, and the silence feeds the fear, and the fear feeds the preparation. And the preparation, 72 million households buying everything they can carry, feeds the shortages.
The loop has already started.
And there is no off switch that does not involve either telling the truth about the severity of the situation or lying until the situation resolves itself, which it will not, because the Strait of Hormuz is still blocked, and the wheat was never planted, and the debt ceiling has not been raised, and the Medicaid rules have not been issued, and the tariffs may be reimposed in July. Costco shelves are going bare, and the companies that restock them are saying it could take months. A woman posted a video from inside her local Costco last week, saying she goes twice a week, and this time she noticed it was unusually bright inside. She looked around and realized all the shelves were bare. She said this never happens, and she is right. Costco carries approximately 3,700 SKUs compared to a typical grocery store's 30,000 to 50,000. The reason Costco works is that every item is high volume, high turnover, and restocked continuously from a distribution network that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When Costco shelves go empty, it means the distribution network that serves the highest volume retailer in the country has been overwhelmed by a demand surge that exceeds the system's capacity to respond. And the response is not quick. Costco and Sam's Club are reporting that restocking certain bulk pack items could take weeks to months because the supply chain disruptions from the Strait of Hormuz closure have cascaded into container shipping schedules, warehouse allocation, and manufacturer production timelines simultaneously. The 4,500 ships stranded near the strait are not just carrying oil. They are carrying consumer goods, raw materials, industrial components, and food ingredients that American manufacturers need to produce the products that American retailers need to stock the shelves that American families need to feed their children. When 4,500 ships cannot move, the entire downstream system slows, port arrivals decline, warehouse inventories thin, manufacturer lead times extend, retailer orders get partially filled instead of fully filled, and the consumer walks into a store that was full last Tuesday and finds empty sections where products used to be. And the consumer does not call the manufacturer to inquire about supply chain logistics. The consumer fills a cart with everything that is still available, which makes the next consumer find even less on the shelf, which makes the third consumer panic harder, which makes the fourth consumer buy a pallet of water from Costco because their father told them to, and they do not even know if it will fit in their truck. That is not a hypothetical. That is a video that a young woman posted this week. Her father told her to order a pallet of water. She does not know why. She just knows her father is scared enough to tell her to do it. And when a father tells his adult daughter to stockpile water, the fear has left the financial channels and entered the family dinner table. That is when you know the anxiety is real. That is when you know the behavior is going to accelerate. Because families do not prepare, because an economist told them to. Families prepare because their father called them on a Tuesday afternoon and said go to Costco right now. And the stockpiling behavior is not limited to food and water. Ready. Gov's disaster supplies kit guidance is being actively cited in Newsweek, Mirror US, and AOL coverage as Americans search for official checklists of what to stockpile. Non-perishables, specifically shelf-stable goods and freeze-dried meals, are surging back into demand after declining in 2023 and 2024. Bottled water, protein bars, and pre-packed ready-to-eat food are selling at pandemic-era rates. Toilet paper, which became the symbol of COVID-era panic buying, is once again disappearing from bulk retailers. Paper towels, dish soap, laundry detergent, and feminine hygiene products are all reporting elevated sales velocity. And Fortune covered what they called the March 2026 toilet paper panic, noting that the behavior has spread beyond the United States to Japan and other countries that are not even directly involved in the war. That is the hallmark of a global panic buying event, the kind that feeds on itself across borders, because the underlying driver is not a local shortage but a universal fear that supply chains are unreliable. When consumers in Tokyo are stockpiling the same products as consumers in Ohio, the fear has crossed the threshold from individual anxiety into mass behavior. And mass behavior, once it starts, does not respond to reassurance from official sources. It responds only to the physical evidence of full shelves, and the shelves are not full. They are emptying, and every empty section that a consumer photographs and posts on social media triggers the next wave of buying from every person who sees the post. The digital amplification of panic buying is something that did not exist during previous supply crises. In 1979, you could not post a photo of an empty gas station to 50,000 followers in real time. In 2026, a single TikTok video of empty Costco shelves reaches 1 million viewers in hours and generates a behavioral cascade that physically empties Costco locations 1,000 miles away within 48 hours. The speed of information has outpaced the speed of restocking. And that asymmetry is what turns anxiety into actual shortage. Diesel is up 45%, and every product in America ships by truck, and nobody is talking about what that means. A contractor posted a video at 5 o'clock in the morning saying the price of diesel fuel is up 45% and that he does not think people realize where this is headed. He is right. Diesel is the fuel that runs the American economy, not gasoline. Diesel, every semi-truck on every interstate, every delivery van on every residential street, every piece of farm equipment in every field, every freight train on every rail line, every construction vehicle on every job site. FedEx has raised its fuel surcharge to 26.5% as of early April 2026. That surcharge is added to every package that moves through the FedEx network, every eBay order, every Amazon package, every Etsy shipment, every medical supply delivery, every auto part, every piece of furniture, every subscription box. Every single thing that is shipped in America is now 26.5% more expensive to move than it was before the war began. And that cost does not stay with FedEx. It is passed to the seller, who passes it to the consumer, who absorbs it in the form of higher prices at checkout. A roofing contractor posted a video explaining that his materials went up 8 to 9% on April 18th, and that he received an email saying prices would increase an additional 10 to 12% on June 1st. A roof that cost $10,000 last month will cost $11,000 this month and $13,000 by June. He said he does not like telling people to buy now before the price goes up, but that is exactly what is happening right now. And it is not just roofing materials. It is lumber. It is concrete. It is drywall. It is plumbing fixtures. It is electrical wiring. It is the materials that build and repair American homes. Every one of them is shipped by truck. Every truck runs on diesel. Diesel is up 45%. And the Strait of Hormuz, which carries the oil that becomes the diesel that moves the truck that delivers the materials that build your house, is still blocked. As long as it stays blocked or even partially restricted, the cost of moving anything anywhere in America stays elevated. And those elevated costs do not come back down when the strait reopens. They are embedded in contracts, in supplier pricing schedules, in distributor rate cards, and in the consumer price index for months and years after the underlying cause is resolved. The 2022 diesel spike is still showing up in food prices in 2026. The 2026 diesel spike will still be showing up in your grocery bill and your utility bill and your contractor's quote in 2028. And the average American household is absorbing these cost increases without any corresponding increase in income. Brookings Institution published an analysis showing that median household income adjusted for inflation was no higher in 2024 than in 2019. 5 years of supposed wage growth, consumed entirely by price increases, and the price increases that are coming in the next 60 to 90 days, as the diesel spike and the Hormuz disruption work through the supply chain, have not yet appeared in consumer prices. They are in the pipeline. They are in the contracts that were just renegotiated. They are in the fuel surcharges that were just imposed. They are in the supplier emails that the roofing contractor just received. They are coming. And when they arrive, the American household that is already spending 100% of its income on essentials will have no mechanism to absorb them except credit cards, savings drawdown, or going without. McKinsey documented in Q4 2025 that 29% of adults dipped into savings, 29% reduced their savings rate, and 28% increased credit card usage. Credit card delinquencies climbed to the highest in almost a decade. Auto repossessions hit the highest level since the financial crisis. And that was before the March CPI spike, before the diesel increase, before the Hormuz disruption fully cascaded. The consumer who was already drowning in December of 2025 is now being hit by a wave that is not yet crested. And the fear that is driving the stockpiling behavior is the fear of a household that can see the wave coming and has no high ground to retreat to. Medication is disappearing from pharmacy shelves because people are filling prescriptions weeks early. Pain relievers, first aid supplies, vitamins, antibiotics, supplements, and prescription medications are being pulled off pharmacy shelves at rates that pharmacists have not seen since the first weeks of the pandemic. People are filling prescriptions ahead of schedule. They are buying 3 months of over-the-counter medications instead of 1. They are stockpiling insulin, blood pressure medication, cholesterol drugs, thyroid medication, and the daily prescriptions that keep chronic conditions managed and keep them alive. And this behavioral pattern is particularly alarming because pharmaceutical supply chains are even more fragile than food supply chains. Approximately 80% of active pharmaceutical ingredients used in American medications are manufactured overseas, primarily in China and India. The shipping delays caused by the Hormuz crisis, the rising cost of air freight, and the general disruption to global logistics are already extending lead times for generic drug manufacturing and distribution. And unlike food, where you can substitute one product for another, medications are not interchangeable. If your pharmacy runs out of the specific formulation of the blood pressure medication that your doctor prescribed, you cannot simply switch to a different brand without a new prescription, a new consultation, and in many cases, a new set of lab work to ensure the alternative formulation is safe for your specific condition. For the 131 million Americans who take at least one prescription medication daily, the prospect of a pharmacy shortage is not an inconvenience, it is a life-threatening emergency. And the early refill behavior that is currently stripping pharmacy shelves is itself creating the shortage it fears. When one patient fills a 90-day supply instead of a 30-day supply, the pharmacy's inventory for that medication is depleted 3 times faster than normal. When thousands of patients across a region do the same thing in the same week, the pharmacy runs out, the regional distributor runs out, the backorder extends from days to weeks, and the patient who was not anxious enough to fill early, the patient who trusted the system, arrives at the pharmacy counter and is told that their medication is unavailable with no expected restock date. That patient, who was not scared 2 weeks ago, is now terrified. And their terror is justified because their health depends on a medication that the system can no longer provide on demand. This is not future tense, this is present tense. This is happening right now in pharmacies across America, and it is going to get worse before the supply chain normalizes. And I want you to think about what this means for you personally. If you take a daily medication, any medication, blood pressure, cholesterol, thyroid, diabetes, antidepressant, anti-anxiety, blood thinner, immunosuppressant, anything that you take every single day to stay alive or to stay functional. The supply chain that delivers that medication to your pharmacy is under the same stress as the supply chain that delivers diesel to the gas station, bread to the grocery store, and shingles to the roofing contractor. It is all the same system. It all moves on the same trucks, through the same ports, across the same shipping lanes, powered by the same fuel that just got 45% more expensive. And when one part of that system seizes, the ripple reaches every other part within weeks. The pharmacy that ran out of your blood pressure medication last Tuesday did not run out because the pharmaceutical company stopped manufacturing it. It ran out because the distribution timeline extended by 72 hours due to a shipping delay caused by a container shortage caused by 4,500 ships stranded near the Strait of Hormuz, and in that 72-hour gap, enough patients filled early refills to deplete the pharmacy's standing inventory. One disruption, one behavioral cascade, one empty shelf, one terrified patient standing at a pharmacy counter being told the medication that keeps them alive is not available today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. They will call you when it comes in. That is the lived reality of the supply chain crisis in the most personal, most frightening, most intimate form it can take. It is not an empty Costco shelf, and the system that is supposed to guarantee its availability is running on the same fragile, just-in-time, zero-buffer infrastructure as every other supply chain in the country. Every crisis in American history started with a feeling that nobody in charge was willing to validate. Here is what the data, the sentiment survey, the Costco videos, the stockpiling reports, the pharmacy runs, the contractor warnings, the father telling his daughter to buy water are all telling you if you are willing to hear it. Americans are not panicking irrationally. They are responding to information that their government, their media, and their financial institutions are either downplaying, ignoring, or actively contradicting. The Federal Reserve says the economy is strong. Americans feel the weakest economy in 75 years. The White House says inflation is under control. Americans just experienced the largest monthly price increase in 4 years. The Pentagon says the ceasefire is working. The Strait of Hormuz is still blocked. The Treasury says the debt ceiling will be managed. Neither party has introduced legislation to raise it. HHS says Medicaid will be improved. 10 million Americans are projected to lose coverage. The gap between what Americans are being told and what Americans are experiencing is the widest it has been since the financial crisis of 2008. When the chairman of the Federal Reserve told Congress in March that the subprime mortgage problem was contained 5 months before the global financial system collapsed. That gap is the source of the fear. Americans are not scared because they are anxious people. They are scared because they can see the numbers on their own receipts, on their own utility bills, on their own insurance premiums, on their own gas pumps, and those numbers do not match what they are being told by the people who are supposed to be managing the situation. When the lived experience of 330 million people contradicts the official narrative of the institutions they are supposed to trust, the result is not confusion, it is preparation. Because the instinct of a population that no longer trusts its institutions is to trust itself. And trusting yourself means buying the water, filling the gas cans, stocking the pantry, filling the prescriptions, calling your daughter, and getting ready for whatever comes next because nobody in a position of authority is willing to tell you what that is. That silence is the most frightening sound in America right now. Not the price of gas, not the empty shelf at Costco, not the diesel surcharge or the pharmacy backorder. The silence of the people who know what is coming and will not say it. That is what is scaring 330 million Americans into the most widespread preparation behavior since March of 2020. And unlike March of 2020, when the preparation was triggered by a single identifiable threat, a virus, the preparation happening right now is being triggered by everything at once. War, inflation, unemployment, anxiety, healthcare cuts, food price spikes, energy disruption, debt ceiling, political instability, institutional distrust, climate disruption, AI displacement. Every anxiety that an American household can carry is being carried simultaneously by the same household in the same month. And the household's response is the most human, most rational, most historically consistent response that exists. They are getting ready because nobody is coming to help them, and they know it. And if you are watching this video and you have not started getting ready, look at what 72 million households have already done. Look at the empty shelves. Look at the diesel surcharge. Look at the prescription refills. Look at the father calling his daughter. Look at the consumer sentiment number that has never been lower in the history of the measurement. And ask yourself whether 72 million households are all wrong, or whether they know something that the people on television are not willing to say. And if you decide that 72 million households might be right, then do what they did. Not in panic, not in desperation, but in the calm, deliberate, methodical way that a person prepares when they understand that the system they depend on is not dependable right now. Buy the canned goods. Fill the prescriptions. Fill the gas tank. Put cash in a place you can reach it. Make a list of what your family needs for 14 days without a grocery store trip. And then acquire those things while they are still available, while the price has not yet fully reflected the disruptions that are working through the pipeline, while the shelves still have product on them. And while the panic has not yet reached the intensity that turns preparation into competition. Because the difference between preparation and panic is timing. Preparation is what you do before the crowd arrives. Panic is what you do after. And right now, the crowd is forming. You can see it in the Costco videos. You can see it in the gas station spending data. You can see it in the pharmacy refill patterns. You can see it in the consumer sentiment number that has never been this low in your lifetime or your parents' lifetime or your grandparents' lifetime. The crowd is forming, and when the crowd arrives, the shelves are empty in 72 hours. Be ahead of the crowd.